So the thing with this, in all of this specification problem, dalawa ang part actually. Okay? First, we need to define what we call features. Mahalaga yan. Because these features will help us, or in other vocabulary, we call that variables. No? We need to identify features that will help us discriminate, in this example, between ham or spam. And selecting this feature is really challenging for some applications. In fact, there is a branch of machine learning that deals with just identifying good set of features, and that is feature engineering. Okay? So marami yan sila. Mayroong feature extraction, feature selection, feature reduction, marami yan sila. The goal is to find which features will lead to good classification. Okay. So let me just illustrate why feature is important, okay, in classification problems. So let's have this horse. So let us imagine na meron tayong dalawang tao dyan, si Hana Limpag at saka si Bernido. Meron silang farm, okay? Saka siyempre may farm, meron silang horse, okay? Yung horse na yon, they like each other. Kamukha sila actually. Okay? And then these two horses are like to jump over from one to jump over the fence, okay? So yung horse ni Bernido minsan tumatalon doon sa farm na pag-aari ni sino ganyan? Pag-aari ni Limpag. Okay? Yun naman kay Limpag, minsan pupunta doon sa farm ni Bernido. So of course, they should have a way to identify kung kanino yung horse na yun. Okay. So they agreed to a scheme. So Jed or Ned ang nakalagay. Pero let's assume na si Bernido yan. So ang ginawa naman ni Bernido, let's say si Jed, si Bernido siya. Nilagyan niya ng small nuts in one ear. Okay? So parang kumbaga tag, nilagyan niya ng kaunting tag dito sa ear para at least makita nila, okay, pag may tag, meaning akin yun. Pag walang tag, meaning kay Limpag. Okay? Kaya lang may nangyari. Ang nangyari is, may accident na nangyari. So, dahil di ba nagko-cross na ngayon na nasugatan din yung ears ng horse ni Limpag dahil doon sa barbed wire. Coincidentally, okay, the same spot at saka the same way yung pagkasugat. So ngayon, hindi na nila ma-identify kasi pareha na naman. So they think, nag-isip na naman sila ng bagong paraan. They now think of another way to identify. So ang ginawa is, what Jed or Bernido did is, he put a big blue bow doon sa tail ng kanyang horse. Yung isa naman walang bow. Okay? Kaya lang ang nangyari is kinain ng nasali sa pagkain ng horse ni Limpag yung nilagay na bow ni Bernido sa kanyang horse. So nawala yung bow. So ngayon balik na naman sila sa problema, hindi nila ma-identify. So what's the lesson there? In terms of selecting features, we must select features that are less likely to change for the individual. So for example, if you want to identify whether this person is the person we are interested by the face, ano kaya yung mga feature ng face na hindi masyadong nag-change? Example is yung ilong. Madali lang yung ilong kasi pwede nating i-retoke. Mata, pwede ding maritoke. So ano kaya yung feature ng face na hindi masyadong madaling mag-change? Yun yung case ng, that's why when you try to identify people, you don't actually use the face kasi ang face madali siyang baguhin. We need some features that are more difficult to change or that do not change easily. So ngayon ang ginagamit actually nila is yung the way you walk. Kasi the way you walk is medyo mahirap yang i-change compared sa physical features. Okay? So itong ginawa naman ni Benito tsaka ni Limpag, what they did is they measured the horse and they found out that the brown horse was a full inch taller than the white one. Of course, ang height, mahirap yan siyang baguhin. Unless mag-inom ka ng maraming milk. Hindi mauminom ang mga horse, di ba? So, we can say that a better feature to identify between, to distinguish the two horses is the height rather than the bow that you put on the tail or the notch that you put the cap in the ears, in one of the ear of the horse. Okay? So, in ML, we always talk about features and the model. So, always yan siya. That's why we discuss about feature vector. So, yun yung feature vector na sinasabi natin, yung T, yung kanina sa images. Yun yung feature vector. Okay? Okay, another example, yung mga example na na-mention natin kanina, puro yun siya classification. Classification of emails, classification of images, the classification of digits, or also classification of not the whole image, but section of the image. You want to classify whether it has a face or not. So all of those are classification. So ibig sabihin, we have this. We have a distinct finite number of categories. We already know. So face or not face, frontal face, profile face, or no face, ham and spam. 1, 0, 1, or 2, or 3, or 9, something like that. So those are categories. So they can be put into finite set of categories. Ito namang problem na ito is regression. So when we say regression, we are predicting a continuous variables. A continuous variable. Okay? So we are not predicting ham or spam, but we are predicting from, let us say, -5 to 100. Continuous siya. Okay? So in that case, we are dealing with regression. Yeah? An example is prediction of stock market. So of course, the stock market, the stock price can be between, let us say, 1,000, 10,000 to 15,000. And it can be any number between this. So this is continuous. So this is continuous. Then we are dealing with a regression problem. So it can be, what are the features that can be a good indicator of the stock price? It can be company profit, debt, cash flow, gross sales, or number of spam emails sent. We can even use that to determine the stock price of a company. Okay. Another application which has nothing to do with may output ba siya or wala. Another application na wala tayong output, meaning yung classification may output tayo, yung category. Sa regression naman, meron tayong output, yung continuous na number. Pero ito, iba itong classic problem na ito because we don't have an output. So we don't have a target output. The only task is, for example, in this case, clustering images, we want to group together images that are similar. So walang kategory na okay, i-group mo yung mga yung mga nakahiga or i-group mo yung images na naglalaro or nanonood lang, something like that. So in this case, wala tayong target. Okay? The only thing that we need to do is just to group images that somehow related to each other. So ito nagpipitch ng baseball. So nag-group niya together. Ito naman yung nagka-cuts ng ball. So ginup niya together. Ito nagbabat. Okay? So ginup niya together. So without even telling the computer how to group it, so sinabi lang niya, try to group it in a way na yung grupo na na-form would be similar to each other. Then that is what we call clustering. Okay? So we cluster images here. When we say cluster, that is what we call now the unsupervised learning. So tinawag siyang unsupervised, it's because we don't have a output. Unlike yun sa supervised na meron siyang output. Okay? So I hope clear a difference between supervised and unsupervised. So in supervised, we have an output or target. Pero in unsupervised, we don't have a target category or target number. We just try to, in this case, the group images such that these images somehow are similar to each other. Okay? So in summary, we have these types of learning problems that we will deal. We have the supervised, we have the unsupervised. So under sa supervised, we have the classification and the regression. Classification if we have finite categories. And regression if we have a continuous output. Unsupervised example is yung density estimation, di pa natin na-discuss yan. Clustering, yan yung example natin. And hidden Markov models. Density estimation is more on determining the probability density function, the PDF. Okay, so whether it's a normal distribution, it's uniform, or does it follow a gamma distribution or beta? So that's a density estimation problem, and that is unsupervised. And we have the hidden Markov model. The hidden Markov model is somehow related to trying to determine the process that generated the data. That's the hidden Markov model. So for example, let us say I'm trying to identify the part of speech of a word. Okay? So for example, I am beautiful. Okay. I there is the subject. Is the verb. And beautiful is the adjective. So how do you teach the computer to identify the parts of speech? Of course, what you will see is just the words. When you read a sentence, hindi naman sinabi doon sa baba ng sentence may nakalagay ito subject. Walang ganun, di ba? Usually, yung word lang tsaka yung sentence. Okay. Now we want to identify kung ano yung role ng word or ano yung part of speech ng certain word on that sentence. Saan siya useful? Useful siya o saan siya ina-apply na ma-identify? For question and answer. Yeah? Automatic question and answer. So for example, we say, who is the president of US? Who is the current president of US? So siyempre, kailangan mo ma-identify, meron ka mga written na word dyan, letter, written text, and then from there, you want to identify kung saan doon ang current president based doon sa binanggit na text. So, yan yung isa sa mga application ng parts of speech. Yun yung ginagamitan natin ng hidden Markov model. And of course, ang isa sa mga sikat ngayon is yung reinforcement learning. Ang kaibahan ng reinforcement learning dito sa supervised learning is that the supervised learning is sorts of a teacher. Okay. So when you say a teacher, you know that you can say exactly what is the output. So I say, is this email ham or spam? So ang gagawin niya, the teacher will say, this one is a ham. And then for another email, the teacher will say, okay, this one is a spam. So merong exact na correspondence doon sa input sa output. Whereas sa reinforcement learning, we don't have that teacher. We don't have the known output. So ang ginagawa actually sa reinforcement learning is instead of saying that's correct or right, kasi sa teacher, sabihin sa'yo, correct. Pag sinabi ng algorithm mo, this is a ham, tapos hindi pala ham, the teacher will say incorrect. Tapos, kung algorithm mo is spam, tapos sinabi ng algorithm is spam, the teacher will say correct. So that's why this is more of a teacher approach, supervised learning. Itong reinforcement learning, hindi kanya bibigyan ng tama ba or right. What it will give you rewards. So you do something, instead of telling you whether it's right or wrong, it will give you reward. So example, turn left, nabangga ka, so ang reward mo dyan is -1. Turn right, wala nangyari, safe. So ang reward mo ay 0. Move forward, nakita doon na mayroong gold. So bibigyan ka ng reward na +1. No? So it doesn't tell you, it doesn't tell you kung tama ba o mali, but it just gives you reward that will use an indication whether you are doing the right thing or not, or whether you are doing the right thing towards a certain goal. Kasi may goal yan kasi eh. So ang example na ginagawa sa reinforcement learning is how do you teach kung a robot to navigate a grid world, no? For example, nandito yung pot of gold. Tapos dito nag-start yung robot. So how do you reach this pot of gold by traversing these grids optimally na ma-reach mo yan? So for example, nandito yung apoy, may apoy dyan. So masusunog ka pupunta. Dito naman may wall. So kung nandito ka na posisyon, tapos mag-move ka up, forward, ma-block ka, infinite block, so hindi ka na pwede. So how do you teach this robot to find an optimal path such that it will reach your goal na mapunta siya dyan sa path of goal? And that is reinforcement learning. Why? Because if you move forward here, okay, wala nangyari. So, okay lang, good. But hindi ka sasabihan ng algorithm na tama yung ginawa mo or mali yung ginawa mo, kasi pwede ito na tama siya. Pwede din kung dito ka mag-move, tama pa rin. So instead, it will give you a reward. Pero the question is that move na up optimal or not? That's the question that is reinforcement learning trying to answer.